This shoe's all over the place. No, I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in this really fast way. Trung. Hopefully what I just did there was run through 6 really quick sneakers as fast as I possibly could, and faster than you could see, because that's what I'm going to go with in this video. I'm going to make a bunch of connections between this shoe and 3 other sneakers on the Jordan line that are dropping real soon or right in this season, but then also a couple of sneakers from the recent past and last year which either didn't make it into production or something went wrong to make them a unique sneaker that wasn't planned. And all of that wraps it up in today's sneaker, because that's what's going on with this guy. There's a bunch of stuff about the story of it that went wrong, the sneakers that should have gone one way and it went the other way, other sneakers around right now that are tying up together with this one, Jordan 1s, Jordan 12s, what else is in it, Dunk Highs, and there's even an Air Force One. So with all that being said, maybe you can guess where I'm going in this video. It's all over the place today with a Nike Dunk High Barely Green All-Star. This is the Tokyo About It 23 Sneaker channel. Tokyo About It 23 Sneaker channel. It's毎日 Upsuno no day,毎日 Media Design. Every single day from Tokyo, Japan, I bring you content about upcoming sneaker releases, sneaker news, and sneaker reviews. And today in the spotlight is the upcoming release on March the 9th of the Nike Dunk High All-Star Barely Green. And that March the 9th little pause there is because of that All-Star game being all over the shop. It was cancelled for a while, then it was postponed, now it's been rescheduled, it's been moved from Indianapolis down to Atlanta, and all a bunch of stuff, confusion galore. And the drop date is scheduled for March the 9th, which I think I'm right in saying is 2 days after the All-Star game itself on March the 7th. But who knows? Who knows what's going to happen, because sneaker drops are all over the place with shipping problems and a pandemic and things like that. So this guy being rescheduled again and again and again and getting to March the 9th, there's a pretty good chance that it will get rescheduled one more time. And before we get into details about the shoe, because you know I love to take you through a shoe bit by bit and point out all the most important features on the branding and the design, of course we'll get into that element that I was talking about, the sneakers that it ties it up to. Now what I'm doing right now is that there are 2 different things I want to do. One is there's 3 other sneakers right in this season that it seems like it's like dominoes or something. Remember that 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon? It's a bit like that, where these shoes are sort of connected together in certain little ways. So that's one sort of section that we'll get into. And then the other is that whole other shoes from recent times that had something go wrong with their drop, and it turned out to make them into bigger shoes than they actually were. And we'll see about that too, and then into the details on this shoe. So first things first, those are 3 other shoes that these guys are connected to. I'm going to walk you through them one after the other. And so what I'm talking about first is we're up looking at this Dunk High, and it's called the Barely Green because the lower panels on there are barely green. But you know what they are? They're kind of a hint of green, a tint of green, patina of green. You know where I'm going? I'm going to the Air Jordan 1 patinas because this was a big shoe that's coming out real soon. I think it's a beautiful shoe, and it's got some hints on it in that light green that's exactly the same as today's shoe, the Barely Greens, and they were kind of slammed by certain sites, like why do they have these colours on this shoe? But it turns out that it's for the actual patina, because that's something that happens to metal. It fades from like bronze and brown colours into green, so it made sense in that. But it's a connection between today's shoe and that Air Jordan 1. And then another Air Jordan 1 that's coming out real soon is the University Blues. Beautiful shoe, very much hyped for mid-March. I think I'm right in saying maybe early March for its drop date, so there's a connection there. And then that light blue Air Jordan 1 takes us back to another Dunk High, light blue this time. The Carpet Company is a beautiful shoe that's dropping real soon. It's actually on the sneakers app here in Japan, which really surprised me, because I thought it was going to be a very hard shoe to get your hands on, and now it's got me all tempted. But there's this sort of run, because you could go from that Dunk right back to this Dunk, another Dunk High, and then you've got this circle just going round between the 4 shoes: Dunk High Barely Green, Air Jordan 1 Patina, Air Jordan 1 University Blue, Dunk High Carpet Company, Dunk High Barely Green, and round and round and round and round and round. I'm wondering though, what if all this means that the departments in Nike are actually talking to each other? Why would an Air Jordan 1 and a Dunk High come out with this patina green on them? Or why would a Dunk High and a Jordan 1 both come out with very similar light blue and white kind of colorways as that University Blue and the Carpet Companies do have? So there seems to be something going on in the sneaker world where they're making some cross connections between the different departments, and this shoe is just another example of that. And what it's also an example of shoes gone wrong, or maybe shoes gone right, depends on which way you look at that. I'm going to show you two Air Force Ones and one Air Jordan 12, and I'll start with the Air Jordan 12 because it's the most recent. It was the Super Bowl Air Jordan 12 Lows, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the big deal about that was that it was projected to be for the fact that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were hosting the Super Bowl, and then they actually went ahead and won it, and the first team to do that in their home stadium, which I think adds an extra dimension to that Air Jordan 12, because the shoe now represents the first team to have played in their home stadium at a Super Bowl, and then of course having won it, the first team to do that as well. So that's a little kink in the story that wasn't planned for. Another shoe that has a kink in the story that wasn't planned for is these Air Force One Drew Leagues. The Drew League is a league that usually happens, I think it's amateur or it's semi-pro or something like that, a summer league that happens in California, if I'm not mistaken, around Los Angeles. And this shoe here, this Air Force One, did drop last year, but the Drew League was cancelled last year, so that 2020 Air Force One Drew League actually represents an event that never happened. And then the final shoe we want to have a look at is a total cancellation of the Air Force One Puerto Rico. Is a very famous shoe that never made it into production. So you've got two shoes there that made it into production, but the events that they represent took twists, and then a third shoe there that never made it into production. And here we are today with this shoe. What am I talking about? What all of this I kind of referred to earlier. Might as well get into this shoe and have a look at the feature. We're talking about the branding on the heel, very standard place to put branding on a dunk low or high, and in the case of this guy's, that circle on there is a hologram that represents the upcoming All-Star game in Indianapolis, but it's in Atlanta. So here you have a shoe that represents something, an event that didn't happen or won't happen in the place that it's projected for. Does that add a level of interest in this shoe? Does that make this shoe more interesting, more unique, more sought after? I think it does. I don't know if it will lead to a more expensive, if it'll be more sought after in the money terms, but at least in the coolness and the story terms. And I think it fits in, like I said, with those two Air Force Ones and then that Jordan 12 Low, because the story of the shoe after production has been changed. So that's the story of this Dunk High, barely green, but we might as well get into some of the features on it as well. And since we already started at the back of the shoe, let's stay in there with the black element. Basically, two different layers. You've got the higher layer, the upper layer, the more outside layer, however you want to put that on it, and it's black. And then below that, you've got the lower layer, which is in that barely green. So if we stay out on the black and we talk about that in terms of materials, it's got a glossy finish, whereas the green underneath that has a matte finish, and they sort of stand off of each other real nice. The matte finish underneath is very uniform and very solid, but when you look in detail at the gloss finish on the black, it's got that representation of the hardwood floors that basketball is played on. And I'm sure that's very deliberate, this being A, a basketball shoe, dunk, and B, a basketball game that they're celebrating, the All-Star game. So I think that hardwood feel on the black elements of this shoe is deliberately there to represent basketball. And then if we go up onto the tongues, very standard branding. I was kind of hoping for a little bit more, to be honest. And then the inverse of that branding on the insoles, again, I think they could have done a bit more with this, but really, it's not unusual for dunks to have their one bit of branding right there on the heel in that branding panel that we already had a look at. So up high, you've got the standard branding on the tongues and standard branding on the inside of these guys. Down onto the midsole, one of the things I liked about the patina, the Air Jordan 1 patinas, was that the midsole was sail, because it toned it down a little bit and matched the rest of the shoe. These guys midsole white, I'm not so sure. I kind of come and go on it. I don't think sail would work. It's the green, the barely green on it is too far away, from dirty. It's too clean. It's too sharp, too icy for a sail midsole to work alongside that, because the sail's got a dirty feel or a grimy feel to it. But white is also, but I don't think there's another choice. I don't think there was anything else they could have put on it. A triple black midsole outsole unit wouldn't have been a good idea. And so I think white was the only choice on these guys. And it kind of works. The laces and the branding up in the tongue sort of offset it enough, so it's like a third colour alongside that barely green. And that black hardwood finish on the matte parts of the gloss of the upper parts of the shoe. And then the last thing to do is flip it upside down and have a look at the outsole, just because, very simply, it's a very solid black outsole and there's not much else to say about it, but it does finish off the shoe very, very nicely. And we come back out and have a look at the whole shoe. I'm kind of like, it's okay. fair enough. It's, if it wasn't for the story and if it wasn't for the branding, I'd just be like, yeah, a nice Dunk High coming down the line, guys. Check it out on March the 9th. But because of the branding, that elevates it once, and then because the branding is actually the old branding for the All-Star game, and they've relocated as of the point of shooting this video, because for all I know, within the next couple of days before this video comes to you guys, they'll have flipped the venue right back to where it started from. But I think those two things elevate this up to a much more interesting shoe and something that people should keep an eye on. And maybe just go ahead and grab yourselves a pair, because there's a story to tell, just like those Drew League ones from last year and the Tampa Bay Buccaneer Air Jordan 12 lows. And that's today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully it was an interesting perspective. You like that little whirlwind around the four shoes from Dunk, Jordan 1 Dunk, and then also that kind of take on the shoes that never were, or shoes that had their stories changed. And if you did appreciate that, I'm glad. It's always great to hear people let me know that they enjoy the content. Speaking of enjoying the content, I say the same thing at the end of every single video, and that's that I do this every single day. And that means that you are guaranteed to see me tomorrow.